Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to BSN One-on-One, and it's spring break, so that means that we are not out at local stadiums around the area broadcasting whatever sports we're playing right now here in Brevard and beyond. So we've tried to fill the airwaves this evening and with some great content, and I tell you what, when I was thinking about who I wanted to bring on this week for great content, as a guy that's done sports talk in the past, I am still very much an avid listener of sports talk, national, local. You know, I'm on Mark Moses' show every Tuesday, but every morning I get up, I come to the studio, I turn on the monitors, and the only sports talk show I put on is the DA show. It is by far the best sports talk show in the industry right now, the national level. And it is my honor to bring on for the first time here on Brevard Sports Network, the host of the DA show. Please help me bring in Damon Amendolara from the DA show. DA, how are you, my friend?
Alan, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much. What a kind introduction. That was awesome. I appreciate that you listen. We don't ruin your morning every morning. That's a good thing.
No, I tell you what, in fact, you get my mornings going on, it's a great show, and we're going to talk about what makes it such a great show, obviously, coming up. But, DA, I wanted to talk to you first about a new project that you just started that I'm very intrigued about, because obviously living here in Florida, especially over the past couple of years, there are a lot of transplants from New York. In fact, it's really hard to find somebody that actually was born and raised here in the state of Florida, in Florida, and you've got a brand new podcast called New York Accents that I'm very hyped about. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
Well, I appreciate you giving me the platform to do so. We just launched this last week, and the idea behind it is a long-form interview for players that used to play in New York and what made playing in New York and succeeding in New York or failing in New York unique. And I grew up about an hour outside New York City in the Hudson Valley. My parents are dyed-in-the-wool Brooklynites, and so I grew up around, the pressure cooker that was New York, and grew up loving the teams in New York. And as I've done this job now for 20 some odd years, I've kind of dotted the map. I worked in Fort Myers, Florida. I worked in Kansas City. I worked in Miami. I worked in Boston. And of course, now on the national level. And I find the New York dynamic to be so interesting. And the one thing is, you just know that if you win in New York, it's massive, but New York can eat you up as well. And that's why this Aaron Rodgers thing is so fascinating. And so I wanted to do a deep dive into these types of athletes and coaches, sports figures, and celebrities as well that have called New York home, and see kind of what makes that so unique. And so far, the first two episodes that we've unveiled, Mookie Wilson, legendary Mets player from the '86 World Series. And just today, we unveiled the Otis Anderson episode, and he was Super Bowl MVP for the New York Giants. And, doing radio, I get 8 to 10 minutes to do an interview, and you can't really dig into the stories. And anybody that listens to my show knows I love the history of the game more than anything. And this is a chance for me to do an hour with players and coaches and stuff like that. So it's something that I've longed to do for a while, and now finally Odyssey said, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger and do a big project like this. And we're excited about it, and I'm really proud of the first two episodes. And if you have any New Yorkers, native New Yorkers, transplants, what have you, that are interested in it, it's available right now everywhere that podcasts are available. Just click on subscribe and find New York Accent and leave a review and let me know what you think. And also any other athletes that you're thinking, this guy would make a good story. I'd love to hear from so-and-so. We're all in on trying to track down any and all athletes that people want to hear about.
We are here with Damon Amendolara of the DA show. And again, his information is on the screen. If you're driving around here locally, around Brevard County here in the 321, you can catch DA's show every morning from 6 to 10 on Sports Radio 1560 The Fan or 107.9 FM as well. You can also catch him on watchda.com, on Twitch and YouTube, and it's great. All right, DA, let's talk about this great show that everyone from all walks of life love. The thing that I loathe about sports talk, and the thing that I've always tried to say to myself is, even at a hyper local level like we are, is never try to be something you're not. Never try to thumb your nose in anyone. Every student athlete to us is important. And at a national level, in watching what you do and your cast does, and I say cast, and I know that Sean Marash is your producer, and Pete Belotti's on the board, and Andrew Kaplan does your digital, and Andrew Bogus is the update. But to me, it all just seems like it meshes together so perfectly. But the thing that you guys are so relatable to the everyday average Joe or Jane. Talk about what makes the DA show so successful.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. I think I've got one of the best teams in the country, and I've worked at a bunch of different places with a lot of talented people. But we have hit on something from a chemistry standpoint where it's really unique and really special, and you know it when you have it, and you know it when you see it, and you want to cultivate it because it takes a while to find this. You never know if you ever do. And you're exactly right. All those guys that you mentioned are so super talented at what they do. But also, at the end of the day, we really are friends with a very deep bond. And so, because of that, we're able to play off one another very naturally. And I think we're able to also rib one another and take shots at one another and kind of get under each other's skin. And that's also really good radio. And so, everything that you hear is really authentic. You know, whatever Mraz says, it's usually something crazy, but it's authentic. Whatever we do playing off of one another, it's really what we would do if we were just out having beers. And we've been together for a while now. Mraz and I have worked together for more than 10 years. And when we joined Pete and Bogus, they had already been working on the previous morning show. Now we've been with them for more than 5 years. Same thing with Cap. You put it all together and you've got a bunch of guys that have been together for a while, so we know each other's tendencies, and we've hung out with one another privately, and so that I think comes across on air. And the one thing that I really like about everybody is that we all come from the same cloth. Don't take yourself too seriously, and what we're doing is talking about sports, so let's make sure it's fun, because it shouldn't be angry, it shouldn't be boring, it shouldn't be a job. And I think those guys are all pretty good at keeping those things in perspective. And so I do think we've stumbled upon a freaking awesome chemistry that
No
you can't
doubt.
replicate. And we have hours upon hours upon hours of ridiculous radio to prove it.
I tell you, it is fun to watch and listen to, and don't be humble here. I mean, you're one of two sports talk shows that still remain from the day the network launched back in January of 2012, and in a day, DA, where sports talk shows come and they go just as quickly as anything else does in society now. That's a pretty good accomplishment. Wouldn't you say?
It is. It's something. Consistency and continuity is something I'm proud of. I had to move around quite a bit in my job to get to New York. I always wanted to get back to my hometown and be around my family, be around my friends, and get back home. And so I had to pick up and pull up roots every place that I was. So I wasn't any place for all that long. I was always kind of looking for the next opportunity to try to get back to New York. When I finally got to New York, as you said, more than a decade ago, it was my chance to finally put down roots and try to deliver something every day, where also my listeners could trust that I was going to be there every day. And I'm sure you feel this way. You develop a certain loyalty with listeners. They buy into your show. You ask them to come out to your remotes or to buy this thing that you're endorsing. And then if you're not there one day, I felt guilty every time I had to move and like, okay, yeah, that's my last show. Time for me to go here or there. And I felt like I kind of left people that were really embedded with the show and loyal to the show. So being at CBS Sports Radio, I've just always said I want to wake up the next day and keep doing radio shows so that the people that listen to me know they can wake up and keep listening to this radio show. And so the fact that CBS Sports Radio has really given me amazing leash to do whatever I wanted, whatever was in this crazy brain of mine. And they've trusted me enough, and they just kept saying, keep doing what you're doing. I really like the fact that now we have the longevity to say, yeah, we've been here for more than 10 years. We've been doing this for a long time. And we should be here for a long time as well. Knock on wood that everything breaks correctly. So you're right to note that. And I'm very proud of that fact that we've been around for a long time and people have become familiar because we've been around for a long time.
Here with Damon Amendolara of the DA Show. Please be sure to check him out every day. The great show that it is on Sports Radio 1560 The Fan and 107.9. Of course, you can catch him on watchda.com, on Twitch, on YouTube. Andrew Kaplan does a terrific job making sure the streams are up. It's really quite remarkable. Even your listeners are a part of your show, which I think makes a tremendously successful show. When Jen gets emotional, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but even our very own beloved Rob in the 3-2-1 here, is a big part of what you guys do. And I think it's incredible that you include them as a part. They feel a part, DA.
Well, I appreciate you noting that as well, because when you work in local radio, again, my first job is in Fort Myers, Florida, and making $18,000 a year. We've got like a 3-person radio station, and I'm asked to go down to your Beef O'Brady's and do a Monday night football radio show and get listeners down there. And so the 3 people that show up to come see me and have a beer mean a hell of a lot. I mean, those 3 people are gold. And so, you appreciate them so much. And I've never lost that. To me, everybody that listens to the show, I'm so grateful for. And sometimes I get that whole, are you sure you really like the show? Or are you just listening because there's nothing else on? Is that something, it's so humbling to know people start their day and listen to the show and get invested in the show. And so I really take it seriously when listeners have a loyalty. I feel very, very strongly about it. And a guy like Rob of the 3-2-1 is a character. He likes being a character. And so why wouldn't you tap into that? And he knows it's in good fun if we tease him. He knows that, it's part of the storylines of the show. And I love that. I really love incorporating the listeners because, the one thing that I've always kind of wanted as a radio show is kind of like a galaxy of stars. I call it, 1,000 faces. You have a show and my name is on it, but there's personalities that are on the show. There's personalities that call in. There's personalities that are guests. It's the cast of thousands. And listeners provide amazing content sometimes, and you just have to be, to me, grounded enough and humble enough to listen to them, to think about what they provide and how they sound. And I think that the listeners like Rob, like Hurricane Jen, like so many that have listened for a long time and like to share their personalities and stories, they're a representative of the other listeners, both good and bad. But they tether people to, oh, that's my role in this galaxy, and I just love it. And I am very, very loyal to the listeners that have been around for a long time, because I remember when I didn't have many of them, and I remember when we were doing overnights at CBS Sports Radio, and I wondered, who is listening? I had people say, you're going to CBS Sports Radio. Yeah. Well, congratulations, but who do you think is listening in the middle of the night? Like, I don't know. I got to figure that out. And so everybody that's ever listened to the show, I owe kind of a certain debt of gratitude to, in my mind.
Yeah, no doubt. And D.A., I tell you, you're even going to get them all together again at Bob's Bar. I was a little concerned about old Knockout Neil there, but I'm glad that situation's settled. I was talking to Mark Moses about this. I said, Mark, you wouldn't bring 3 listeners to your apartment, and they're going to do it in a backyard. Can you imagine this? And we were talking about this and just how awesome it is that you allow your listeners the opportunity to come to New York and have a beer with you. I think that's great, DA.
We've stumbled upon something really special here, because it takes a certain person like Mraz and his family to open up their doors to complete strangers from all over the country. But those are the type of people that they are. And I truly appreciate that. And it kind of happened on a lark last year. Are you sure, listeners? Why can't listeners come in? And Mraz was kind of cornered into, okay, yeah, fine, I guess so. And then sure enough, people showed up and it became such an amazing fabric of the show. Oh my goodness, Dan in Mechanicsburg has driven 3 hours through the middle of the night to come here on no sleep and to stay the whole day. It's an extraordinary thing. And now it's kind of grown into, yeah, people have reached out and said, well, I want to build my vacation around this, or maybe we can come up there to see New York City when we come out there as well. And it's something that is so unique, because I don't know another radio show that does this, invite people to their actual childhood home. It also, I think, speaks to the fact that we really do feel a deep loyalty to the people that listen to the show, because that listenership and that loyalty has propelled us through, the levels at CBS Sports Radio, from overnights to evenings to mid-mornings to the morning show. We've always had this groundswell of momentum from listeners that said, hey, we want to hear more of them. And hey, we really like this show, and affiliates heard that as well. And so, this is kind of a grand thank you, because, when you work in local, I always love the fact, hey, meet me down at so-and-so. I'll be there for Monday Night Football, or I'll be there for the Final Four. I'll be there for the Super Bowl. Come and watch. And you get to meet everybody that listens to you. And on the network level, we don't get to do that. So this is an excuse to do that. And I really, really love it. And especially if Knockout Neil and other listeners don't want to fight me, it's even better.
Here with Damon Amendolara. And Damon, I want to switch gears a little bit, because you have done it all in this industry. You literally have done it all. I mean, you've been a sideline reporter for soccer in Boston. I mean, you name it, you've done it. Play-by-play for minor league baseball. And the passion with which you've done these things are the things that we try to teach our interns here. I've got a sophomore that works for me by the name of Jackson, who is just phenomenal, and the young man's got a really bright future. And other interns, we work with the local schools here to bring these students into that have a want and a desire for journalism and broadcasting. And, I would ask you, DA, what advice would you have for someone in high school that might be thinking about sports talk radio or broadcasting or sports journalism in 2023? Because it certainly is different today than it was even 10 years ago, DA.
Sure is. Maybe even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You mentioned all the different things that I've done, and that's a byproduct of saying yes to as many opportunities as possible and putting in as much energy as I could to each one of them, to see where I fit and to see where the next door opened. Now, I've been on syndicated national radio now for more than 10 years and been a sports talk radio host for more than 20, but I didn't know this is where I wanted to be in the industry when I decided I wanted to become a sportscaster. Back in high school, I knew I wanted to do something in sports media, but sports talk I didn't think necessarily fit my personality. You had mentioned this off the top. I didn't want to argue with people. I didn't want to belittle people. I didn't want to feud with co-hosts. And that's what I heard a lot of in sports radio back in the 90s and early 2000s. I said, that's not really my personality. But when I went to my first job in Fort Myers, they said, okay, we need you to run the board. No problem, I can do that. We need you to do updates. No problem, I can do that. We need you to book guests. No problem, I can do that. We need you to fill in to do some hosting when a guy's on vacation. Okay, I can do that. And by just saying yes to as many things as possible and pouring whatever energy I had into making that effort for that job that day the best I could do, it opened up my eyes and said, oh, I thought maybe I wanted to do play-by-play, or I thought maybe I wanted to do anchoring on TV, or I thought maybe I wanted to do sports writing. And then suddenly I did this radio show, and it tickled my imagination, because it was that theater of the mind. Oh, this could be my blank canvas, and I can have opinions, and I can have guests, and I can show my personality. I could dig deeper into a topic. I could make it my world. And it was so enticing to do something like that. And I wouldn't have gotten there unless I just kept saying yes to everything. What do you need me to do? I'll do it. I was just so hungry to have a job anywhere, anywhere. I couldn't believe it when I got my first paycheck saying they're going to pay me to do this. And it wasn't a lot of money, let's face it. But I was like, man, this is so cool that somebody is going to pay me to do something that I desperately love to do. But I've tried sideline reporting. I've tried play-by-play. I've tried television stuff just to make sure that all the opportunities I was keeping open and keeping doors open for myself so I could see where I fit in. And I think today that's an even more important lesson than ever because a lot of sports departments could be shrinking. There's the digital side of things with streaming and YouTube and social media. And there's so many things that are new and will be changing that if you shut yourself off from opportunities, can you say, I wouldn't do that, or I'm not good at that, or I'm too scared of that. You don't know where you could fit actually best, and you don't know what you're closing yourself off of in the future. So it can be scary, but I would encourage young people that want to get into the industry to say yes to all the opportunities that come your way and pour your heart and soul into it. And then you let life open up the door and say, oh, well, maybe that's the one that I'm going to walk through.
And the other thing I want to ask you to beat into these students' heads these days is you graduated from Syracuse in '01. You're not going to walk out the door in college and onto the anchor desk at CBS or ESPN, are you, DA?
One of the grand lessons that they beat into my head in school was, freshman year. They said, don't think you're walking out of here to get an NBC job in New York. Don't
Right.
walk out of here thinking you're anything special. Are you ready to go beat the bushes in a small market for very little money? And that was an early lesson that they made sure you understood. And you know what? Freshman year, a lot of people turned around and said, no, this isn't for me, which totally fine.
Yep.
It shed a lot of the people that had maybe delusions of, I'm going to go to college and now suddenly I'm going to be Tom Brokaw or something like that. And that was an important lesson. And it's for sure something you have to remember. It's hyper competitive. It's really, really intense to get jobs and to keep jobs. And so, you can't pick what you want to do or where you want to do it. You got to go where the opportunity is. And it's a great lesson that all the people that are in the industry, yourself included, it is a product of passion. You must have the passion for it, and you must keep going forward at it. Because if you think you get to pick your place on the ladder, no, that ain't how it works. It decides for you where you go,
Yes.
your opportunities.
That's exactly right. DA, I apologize I'm keeping you so long, but I don't
Not
get
a problem.
the.
I got nothing to do. You let me know how long you need me, Alan. I got plenty of time for you.
I appreciate you, man. I definitely appreciate you. And then one thing I want to talk to you about, being a Baltimore native, loving Baltimore sports. One of the things that I personally want to thank you for is the love and support that you showed Little Mo. And I know that you give back. I know that you have charities that you're involved with. And, obviously with Jeremy Kahn, great guy. Jeremy's a great guy, 105.7 in Baltimore. Talk to just Little Mo. I'm curious how Little Mo touched your life.
Yeah, very deeply. I mean, in my studio right now, I'm looking at a painting of Little Mo, and he's with me every single day. Mo was a young man that listened to the radio show when we were on nights, and he would call up and have a take about the Orioles or the Ravens, and it was Little Mo in Baltimore. And I didn't really know too much about him, but I knew that there was this young man that called up, and he had such a charming laugh. His enthusiasm was infectious, and we all got a kick out of the little young Mo in Baltimore that would call up and just make us laugh in the middle of the night. And he would laugh along with us, and he would poke fun at Mraz, and he was a very special young man. And so we had a really good time when he used to call. And then I learned through newspaper articles and online articles and videos from FanFest that he was a big deal in Baltimore. I had no idea, but locally, as you said, he had called 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore for for all that time that he was calling us, and I kind of was unaware. And so then I saw, wow, this is a young man, very special, blind from a very early age. Cancer had taken his eyesight and really ravaged his body, and he fought like hell to beat it. And it kept coming back, but he kept fighting. He went to Johns Hopkins and became beloved in there, and just became a civic icon. And it was amazing for me to watch his story from afar unfold as this young man that gathered so much support and became a hero in Baltimore, and the Ravens embraced him and the Orioles embraced him. I felt lucky that I could even have a small part in his life, where he used to listen to the radio show because he was such an inspirational figure. And as his life started to wind down to the age of 13, unfortunately, the cancer came back, and it was going to unfortunately, be there to the bitter end. I had called Jeremy Kahn exactly because I knew that he was, Mo's closest confidant in sports media. And I kind of asked Jeremy off air, about Mo's status and what was going on. And he said, it's pretty bad. And, I can connect you with the family. And if you'd like to come down to meet Mo, he would love to meet you. And I felt personally a great deal of gratitude, and I was just touched that he would want to meet me because he was such a special young man. So I drove down to Baltimore with my wife, and before he passed away, I got to spend a day with him in his bedroom playing video games and eating Chick-fil-A, and
nice.
It was one of the most special moments of my life to spend that with him, because he represented everything to me that is beautiful about humanity, which is loving one another and laughing until the end, and the spirit of showing your heart and loving sports. And just, he had such an amazing message for a young man. I just thought, like, no, this is a special human being here that is taught a lot of lessons at the age of 13 that most of us as adults, never quite understand. And when he passed away, it was a hard day for me, but
yeah,
his legacy lasted forever. I looked above my house, and no joke, there was an orange sunset with purple streaks, which was Orioles.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that, because I'm in New York, and I said, this is such a special sunset that I took pictures of it. And I just was like, well, little Mo's with us forever. And sure enough, that night in Baltimore, 4+ hours south, they had the same type of sunset. And there's the same picture at Camden Yards of an orange and purple sunset that they'd never seen before. And you just know that there's some things you can't explain on earth, and little Mo is one of those magical people.
Yep.
And so I go down to Baltimore every year to spend time with the people that were closest to him, his mom Sanzi, and this great group of people in Baltimore that really took on the cause of spreading the gospel of little Mo. And they raised money for his family, and the Orioles inducted him into their Hall of Fame, and the Ravens have Mo highlighted in the end zone. And I just go down there to be with really special people. And you're from a really special place. I think Baltimore has such a heart about it that if they were willing to build a statue of a young boy and name a street after him, and do all these wonderful things, then it's a pretty special place. And so I feel incredibly lucky to be part of Mo's life. And I put together a piece on YouTube about what he meant to me.
Beautiful.
I get choked up, but he's that special. And
yep.
I feel really, really lucky that he used to listen to our radio show. And I feel like every so often he probably tunes in from above as well to see what Merez is eating this morning.
Yeah, no doubt. And for guys like myself, it was a thing of beauty, because unable to, being from Baltimore, knowing of his situation, being able to watch your show and follow along as we did, again, thank you for that. And of course, the whole country fell in love with little Mo. We'll be wrapping up here shortly with Damon Amendolara of the DA show. And all right, DA, I got to ask, you've done so much in this industry. Obviously, now with your success on over 200 stations in the United States and Canada on a national level, one of, in my opinion, the best sports talk show on air. What is the thing that, if it all paid equally and all things considered, what one thing do you love the most about all of it that you've done?
Great question. I love the fact that when you do radio, you have an intimate bond with the listener. It's unlike any other platform that we have in sports media. When you write a piece online, you might get comments underneath, but they don't have an emotional connection to the author usually. And when you watch television and you see the debate shows or you watch highlight shows or studio shows, people don't feel like they know those people's lives. You don't look on TV and say, yeah, I know that person's life. But in radio, people are with you every day as though, you're really literally part of their family, or you're part of their daily routine, or you're part of their work day, or you're just in their lives for hours. In our case, 4 hours every morning, people go to work or get ready for school or get ready for work or get the kids ready. And they feel like they intimately know our lives, our families. And so we become really close to people. And I kind of mentioned that bond when I was working in local radio, the fact that I would go someplace and people would shake my hand or high five or fist pound or whatever and be like, they felt like they knew me for years. And I just thought that was so rewarding to work in a space where the people that listened to you considered you a friend or a family member. And so I don't think there's anything like that when you do any of the other platforms. It's not the same. And I've done a lot of stuff. And so that part of it is so rewarding. And I wish, if all things were equal, like you said, that it paid the same way as network television does, or debate shows do. That would be really amazing.
Right.
I can't imagine doing the job that we do, and you kind of just talk into a microphone and you walk off set and you unclip your mic and then you jump in your car and you don't interact with anybody the rest of the day. And social media changed that a little bit, obviously, but you still have to get into your mentions. You still have to get into Twitter. And man, when you take phone calls on the radio and people listen to you for hours and hours every day and for years, there's just no bond like that in media. And that, to me, man, I've always said, if this is it, if CBS Sports Radio said, you know what, DA, the show's gotten tired, the shtick has gotten tired, it's time to go, I'd be like, you know what? I had a hell of a run, because I had those types of bonds and those types of listeners that loved the show and connected with me, and I felt like I knew them and they felt like they knew me, and there's just nothing like it.
Well, I'll say this. The next thing CBS needs to do, and I'm going to say this from this seat here, I want to see you on the CBS network in the morning. That's what I want to see. That's what I want. I'm going to put my 2 cents in for that. When I turn my DirecTV on in the morning, it's the DA show I want on my Dish network on CBS. From all of the stuff, DA, from Mraz's continued education of the simplistic things, the Bob's Bar, to listening to Jody Mack's noises. What's your favorite, I guess, bits on the show? What do you really like? Like urinals to toilets. That was some of the greatest 20 minutes in sports talk show radio. It related to sports. Every guy that's ever gone to any sporting event in a cramped stadium was screaming at the radio that morning. What are some of the things you look back on and go, I can't believe we did that, but I can't believe how successful that was?
Well, I have an eccentric sense of humor. I always have had a little bit of skew. I like the ridiculous. I love the ridiculous.
Right.
I love the absurdity. And I think in sports, we just take each other so seriously. We take ourselves so seriously that it's really good to just sometimes be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the world is so serious now that it's really good, I think, to latch on to not unimportant things and make them important. And because there's no stakes. And so urinals versus stalls is one of those things where we were so passionate. It was a little scary that we were really getting mad at one another. There was some stuff that was really boiling over about the screaming match, but at the end of the day, we were fighting over urinals versus stalls, which to me is beautiful that we can get that impassioned about something that is so unimportant. But I think that the fact that CBS has just been saying, like, yeah, DA, just keep doing what you're doing. Whatever you think is funny, keep doing. Whatever you want to try, keep doing. I love, like, the fact that we had one of our former producers, Kenny Brock, big Eagles fan, say,
Yeah.
if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I'll eat crow, literally. And I was like, I'm going to hold you to that. And when they won the Super Bowl in 2017, I had to go actually find somebody that hunted crow,
Right.
cook it in the crock pot, and we had a taste test in studio. And I'm like, are we really going to eat crow right now? Oh, we sure are going to eat crow right now. And some of these bets, I mean, eating death by salsa or throwing, because the Flyers beat the Rangers, we had to throw batteries and snowballs at Mraz.
Birdseed. It's great.
The true absurdity, those moments are the ones that I actually have to think back. Can you believe we're getting away with this?
Yeah. And I just know, I'm telling you, last year, I know this year's Canadian bacon is going to be the stuff that radio legend is made of. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what's happening this year.
Yeah, I know. Somehow this has also spun into something crazy. We just wanted Mraz, when the pandemic was happening, to do a morning recap of the Stanley Cup playoffs because, hey, it was sports and we were all just dying for sports to be back. And then suddenly he wove in a couple of puns. It spun into the next year where it spun into more puns. And now it's become some type of performance art where you get judged based on oinks, of course. Why not?
I love it.
Fraction of oinks, and the crowd is at a fury if you get it wrong and rate him right. And again, it's the theater of the absurd. Like, are we really getting that emotional over whether Mraz's rendition of "Power" by Snap was
Power.
Is that 3.7 oinks or 4.25? There are really big difference between that 0.5 oinks.
It ruins 20 minutes for people sometimes because they get so mad, but they love it and they look back on their day. DA, I know when there's times when Canadian bacon's running because I grew up playing the sport. I love the sport, and I know there's times when I've missed it. I'll go back and. If I don't find Canadian bacon, my day's not complete during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Forget going to watch the NHL recap show on the NHL Network. Brother, it is Canadian bacon.
If only the NHL Network knew that this was a popular series that perhaps they could bring it onto the network. That there's something there. So even for people that don't like hockey, they like hearing bad puns and bad singing about the hockey. So I think that's a win for the NHL.
Two more things for you here, DA. We'll let you go. I know look, man, I know you get up early in the morning. And by the way, how does a guy, you and all of your staff, I mean, you're on the air by 6 a.m. Obviously, you're getting up sometime around. How the hell do you even watch sports at night? I mean, how do you get this done? Hosting a show every day at 6 o'clock in the morning.
It's the toughest part about the shift, and the toughest part about the job is that we're all up by 4 a.m. or so. Between 3:30 and 4 is when everybody gets up, and we all get into work at different ways. But we're all in there, obviously, for a 6 a.m. start time. And what my schedule is, and I think most of the guys is, you watch the early games 7 until 9 or 10. You crash, and you get 4 or 5 hours, and then you come home and hopefully get a nap. I know I get a nap, but I have no kids. All the rest of the guys have kids. But, yeah, that's the toughest part because that alarm clock goes off real early. And if you want to watch Sunday Night Football or you want to watch a World Series game or an NBA Finals game that ends at midnight, you're looking at that clock going, are you kidding me? Like, I got to get up in 3.5 or 4 hours. Like, this is not that good. So that's the toughest thing. But, I always mandatory get a nap at some point of the day just to make sure I'm not fried. And that's helped me out quite a bit over the years because it's just a moment for me to reset my brain, even if it's for 45 minutes or even a half hour, just reset the brain, get refreshed so that you're not completely dragging the rest of the day because you can't watch everything when you wake up that early, but you got to watch something. You can't be totally in the dark. So it's important to be able to find a way to kind of grind your way through some of those.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have, obviously.
Yeah, no. Listen, my producer wants to know. He's got one question and one question only. And his question is, of all the things that Mraz has ever said, from vampire, from being afraid you're going to turn into a vampire, to all of the waters are filled with salt. What is the one thing, DA, that you still can't? Chickens regrow wings, which was unbelievable. What a great thing that was. What's the one thing you still can't believe he actually believed? You think about it and you go, I swear I can't believe he really believed that.
Well, there's been so many that have blown my hair back. Like, there's no way you could believe that. I mean, just recently, he thought that Mary and Joseph were Adam and Eve. They were the first people that they began humanity. And I was just floored going, you just thought they were interchangeable? Those are the same people?
Cartoon characters.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. But the one thing that just staggers me is this thing happened years ago, and it took me inside the brain of decision making, and it said a lot. It filled in a lot of the gaps of when you hear him say things like that. How could he believe that? And that was, we did a geography bee with him, and I said, what is the national language of Brazil? And of course, it's a trick question, because it isn't Spanish and It's in South America. So he's got to go somewhere else. And either he'll say Spanish, which is not the worst answer in the world, or he's got to do a thought project through it. And to see the thought bubbles go through what he came to it floored me. It was staggering, and it's almost impressive. He said, okay, well, I know you think I'm going to say Spanish, so it's not Spanish. So, okay, you got that part. Now he goes, well, now let me think about where Brazil is. Okay, now you've got to follow where his brain is, where he's placing it. And then he goes, well, I'm going to say Egyptian. And that was a walk-off. Egyptian. I said, you think they speak Egyptian in Brazil? He goes, yeah. I go, well, why do you think that? He goes, well, it's over there. I go, what do you mean by over there? He goes, it's near the pyramids. I said, you think Brazil is near the pyramids? And it was this, his face drops. Oh, I'm wrong on that. He couldn't even place the country in the right continent, let alone what language was there. And I just said, what a void in your basic knowledge to just think that country is across a massive ocean from where it is. I just was like, that takes the cake. I can walk off from this one.
And you got to climb the pyramids to get a kill. What's the national language of Brazil? No, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm kidding. I do want to know after we're done, though. DA, it's Portuguese, right. I'll give you, there you go. DA, this has just been great. I tell you, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. Again, I guess my final question would be, with all of it, what would be one thing, if I cornered you and said, DA, you can only tell everyone one thing about your show and what it is you want them to know about your show? One thing. What is it?
I hope and I believe that our radio show walks the line better than any other radio show of serious and absurd. I really love sports, and I find sports to be super important in today's culture and society. I don't think it's frivolous. I think it's important. I think it's a unifier. I think it reflects a lot of the best traits of all of us. When we get together, we celebrate one another. We deliver passion. We have connections through families and traditions and lineage. That part of it is really important to me. And I like to talk about that, and I like to honor that, and I like to celebrate that. But I don't think that sports needs to be something that we feud over and that we war over and that somebody has to be right about. And so I think it's important to laugh at yourself. And that's why I want a healthy dose of absurdity and laughs every single day to make sure we counterbalance. Say life needs to be fun and it needs to be lighthearted, and we can't take each other seriously, and we can't always be feuding. So I think I'd like to believe that our show walks that line better than anybody else, that you'll tune in. And I always say I want to do two things every morning for our listeners: make them think and make them laugh. If I can do that, then I feel like I've checked two important boxes of your day. And I really strive for that. Every segment, I strive for that. Let's make them think. Let's make them laugh. And if we do that, then we've struck certain gold. So that's what I hope it says on our tombstone of the DA show one day.
And for those that are going to be pissed at me, DA, because I didn't talk any sports with you, who's your national champ in the NCAA tournament?
Let me tell you, this is going to define how absurd our show is. We're doing an NIT bracket challenge.
Right.
Nobody knows anything about the NIT. So I can tell you I've got Vanderbilt over Oregon in the NIT Final Four national championship. I haven't filled out my main bracket yet. That comes, I think we're going to unveil our brackets on Thursday's show. So I don't know
got you.
Who is yet, but I know who my NIT Final Four is, which is obviously just as important.
All right. So let me ask you this: where does Lamar end up? Does he stay at Baltimore, or does he go someplace else?
I think he stays in Baltimore. I know I'm becoming the minority voice here because there's so much emotional trauma seemingly between Lamar Jackson and the franchise, but I just feel like cooler heads ultimately will prevail. Number one, history tells us that if you slap the franchise tag on somebody, even the non-exclusive, they don't leave. There's been one guy in 20 years, Sean Gilbert, that has left by being traded after the franchise tag is slapped on him. So it just doesn't happen. Number two, I think Lamar Jackson, his best fit is with John Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh loves him. I think Harbaugh adores him. And right now they're just caught in a weird pinch point. But time heals wounds. Money heals a lot of wounds. And if history tells us he's not going to be traded, at least for a while, it gives them time to work this thing out. So I still believe he's going to be a Raven. And I still believe that's the best place for him, too.
I couldn't agree with you more as a Ravens fan. DA, I tell you, I can't thank you enough. And I tell you, if you're a sports talk show listener out there and you've never heard the DA show, well, first of all, you're living under a rock. Second of all, you need to check it out in the mornings, 6 to 10 a.m. Here locally, you can catch it on Sports Radio 1560, The Fan, and 107.9. And of course, DA's got a brand new podcast, New York Accents, and that's available on Odyssey, and the first two episodes are out with Mookie Wilson and Otis Anderson. DA, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is an extremely busy day. We're very grateful to have had you here today on Brevard Sports Network. Thank you, my friend.
Well, my pleasure, and I can tell you to other radio hosts or young people getting into the industry, listen to Alan's interview here. You can tell somebody who has done their research, who's familiar with the subject, they can ask really good questions because, that's such an important part of what we do is really understanding the subjects that we're interviewing. And I mean, your questions, the show so intimately that it makes what we just talked about breeze by. That was a quick hour. And we could have done multiple hours. So Credit to you, man. Thank you so much for having me on and loving the show. And anytime you guys need me, I'm here for you.
I appreciate you. DA, Damon Amendolara. So for Damon Amendolara, I'm Alan Slaughterzinski right here on Brevard Sports Network. Have a great night, everybody. And you know the drill. Make it a sports night.